All right, Miranda. So I'm gonna go ahead and help you with your fro. So I've got I think you can see it, a kind of rough for what I'm gonna kind of be demoing. Um, the colors that I'm using, I've got a yellow, a light blue, because I know you've got light blue, and then I've got a red. Um, I've got a what is this? Burnt umber, but the sienna that you have should work just fine. And then I've got my black and white. So I know you're trying to color in the fro. So you can the technique that I'm going to show you is going to be the main thing. You're not going to have to worry about the colors making sure they're perfect because you can mess around and change that and apply the color, whatever colors you want to the technique, and it should work just fine. um so yeah, the brushes that I'm using, I try to keep it to what you kind of have. So I've got like two regular, what are these, round brushes? I think these are round brushes, and I'm not sure if you have a filbert, but if you, it looks like this. If you do have it, if not, you can honestly just use like a round brush. It should be fine. So, um, depending on what you're trying to do, I know you said originally you were going to try to do a like a maroon color, I think you said. It's been a while since I've mixed colors, so we're gonna also the palette that you have, that's I know it's like a small little cup. If you have it, get like a what the heck is that called? Like a paper plate or something, so that way you've got more room to mix your colors with. But if you're looking for like a maroon color, I'm gonna actually play with this because it's been a while since I've done this. And I'm sorry, I'm holding my camera because I don't have the tripod yet. but um but yeah, let me know what type of images you want, because when I genuinely have a list of the stuff that I'm gonna get you for your paint kit. So I'm gonna get you some brushes, some paints that I have, the paints that I use, a mixing knife, which is what this is called. It helps mix paint easier without clogging up your brush. And then what the hell is that? And then I'm gonna send you a few a few canvases with some sketches on it. So I'll add a little bit more black. When you mix colors, try to only add a little bit at a time, so that way you don't make something too dark or too light. But actually, you know what? That'll be okay. That should be okay right there. So this is what the heck is this? This is called a mixing palette, or a palette, paint palette. So it's just because I paint more often. You don't really need anything like this, but it's what I use to kind of get my stuff done. So let me squirt this crap off. So I'm gonna use that velvety color. Let me rinse off my paint knife. Sorry if you hear all that clinking. I gotta get that paint off. All right, whatever. So the next color, I guess we can try to play with, is going to be maybe, I mean, we'll do a random color. We'll do a different type of, a lighter red maybe. Do like an orange color for the highlights maybe. So just so you know your combinations, blue, yellow make green. So you can always experiment, but that's gonna get a green color. So you have that. Blue and red are gonna get purple. Now, depending on the intensity of the color of like the blue or the red is going to let you know if that purple is going to be more on the more bluish tint. or if it's going to be on closer to like a redder tint. And just because my blue is so light, it's going to be on the more reddish tint because that red is a little bit more powerful. But it just kind of depends on the red that you're using also. So that's more of a reddish tint purple. If you want to kind of lighten something up, like I said, just little colors at a time. So that way you can kind of know what you're messing with. So, okay, so we got the red for, or that like a velvet color, could be a little bit darker. We'll probably use that for, not the base, but I want to say like the secondary color. We're going to do a darker red for the base. So I'm going to get more of that sienna there. Like I said, you can mess around with the colors yourself. It doesn't have to be these exact colors, but sorry, I'm also listening to your last lives while I'm recording this. So that's a little bit darker, of course, than that. I do want to have this a little bit darker, so that way it's a little bit more contrast to that red. So and I don't really have a lot of light over here, so let me move this real quick. There we go. Got a little bit better light here, so you can kind of see what my colors are. So this is more like a chocolate. I want to say more like a chocolate, I guess like a velvet, right? I want to say like a chocolate velvet almost. But anyway, so I'm gonna put that down, and then we're going to work into this bad boy. So I'm gonna adjust my lighting here, clean these paints off to the side so I can get this over here. All right. So have your water nearby. If you want to have a clean cup, God dang it. If you want to have a clean cup and then a dirty cup, that's fine. But all right, so what we're gonna do, where is my brush? Okay, so because your paints are a little bit less high quality, what I would recommend is probably wetting down the area slightly on what you want to color, just to kind of help the paint spread a little bit. I'm using acrylic painting paper, so this is what I'm using, just so you know. It's got the texture of canvas or tooth of canvas, but it's paper though. So okay, so we've got that wet. I'm gonna take that darker color and I'm just gonna start laying it out. And I'm kind of trying to figure, you also want to know like where your light source is coming in. So I'm going to have the light source coming in this way, so that way I can darken this area up and then have this side lighter. But, and acrylics, usually they don't take too long to dry, but if you want it like bone dry before you lay on any layers, like you can either use like a blow dryer to kind of help it dry a little bit quicker. But since this is still wet, if I want to add some of the other color in or blend some of the other color in, like on the edges here, I'm going to go ahead and get a little bit of the other color here. And I'm going to kind of swirl it in to blend it. So that way it flows a little bit better and it's not just a clean cut line to differentiate where the other color is to where this color is. So just wetting it and some water to the paint if you need to thin the paint out a little bit. So like, I'm gonna rinse this off real quick, but a little bit of water. My brush is a little bit wet, And then I'm just going to pick some of this paint up and then go back into the drawing. So, and then you can still go over a little bit with this on this side, so it actually does help look a little bit more natural, because you've got that you're building depth up because you've already got this kind of laid down. And this is kind of already dry, so I can slightly go over it with some paint. It's not soaked, my brush isn't soaked, so it blends it in a little bit more. I'm gonna go back in with this little bit darker color here and kind of help with these edges here to help it blend. And like you can kind of use like a circular motion to kind of help it make it blend, especially because you're dealing with a fro. And you can of course span that out. If you're having like a light, you can think of going like this. Think of it like a curve. You're gonna have some shadow hitting down here. And then I'm gonna do a little bit more of the darker color here, just because that's gonna be where the shading is, right? And I'm gonna get here. I mean, you can of course go over this, make it, you know, neater and darker, even if I want to actually. So this is still dark, or this is still, it's tacky. It's not completely dry, it's tacky, right? So I'm gonna get some black. I'm gonna water it down a little bit, but I don't want too much water because it'll peel some of that other paint up since it's still kind of wet. And I'm just going to slightly, that's a little bit too much. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna rinse, I'm gonna dab this off, and I'm gonna go back in here and then just spread this out so it doesn't look as harsh, right? So now you've got that depth going on, so where you can literally see it kind of transition. And you can do that even more, like, you know, down here if you want to kind of divide it up a little bit more. Like I said, this is kind of a quick demo, but like if you want, you can do like actual circles. I should have got this smaller brush. Let me get an actual circular brush, because that's probably going to be better. So you can do like little circles for the fro, little areas here, kind of dig here. And then of course, you know, I'm going to go back with that base coat. I'm actually going to probably mix it in with a little bit of this here. So yeah, don't be afraid to actually experiment and stuff, because with acrylics, you can paint over them. So don't be afraid to like experiment and paint over or go over something again. So here, because I want to get this base coat in, because you want to add layers to your acrylic painting. That's going to help create depth and make it look more realistic. Well, not even more realistic, but it's going to give that depth to that picture or painting. Hi, Falcon. So this is not dark enough, so I added too much water. So I'm just going to add more actual paint versus water, and then go in and actually do this. Here. So there's that. So that right there, let me put the light over it at an angle that's not going to create a reflection here. Hopefully that helps, but I'm going to talk about highlights, right? Because it's a fro, you're going to have certain areas. Actually, I do want to, okay, I'm going to add a little bit, because I want this to kind of go here. So I'm going to make some areas where that fro kind of separates here and maybe here. And that's just me using the darker color, this color here instead of this color. Kind of like how I did straight black with this versus the darker velvet. Make her safe. All right. So that's this part, right? So now we're going to talk about highlights. Highlights. So with highlights, you don't, depending on what your style is, you don't want to add just white. You want to take so for here, we've got black and the dark velvet. So instead of taking straight black or white to add highlights, I'm going to take a little bit of this darker color, and I'm going to use a little bit of white. Actually, probably a little bit more white, because the whiter that I'm using. So I'm mixing that. Could have used my brush, or my palette knife, but whatever. So now it's going to be figuring out where these highlights are going to go. You don't want to have them go everywhere, so you just want to pick certain areas. With highlights, less is more. So like if I want to, the light is coming down this way, it's going to maybe touch a little bit right here, right? And this isn't fully dry, so it's not sticking out as much, but I mean, that might also be what you want. So let me see here. And then maybe down here, maybe there's some areas right here that might be sticking out more than the others. So we're gonna try to do a little here and maybe here. I'm listening to your laugh. Sorry, I'm laughing, but like stuff like that. I mean, you can even have it kind of here, so that kind of helps. I mean, even if you wanted to kind of divvy this little area up here, kind of give it some separation, right? You got that. Actually, I'm thinking some more too down here. Yeah, a little bit, maybe some, boom. Right, so there's some separation. That, like I said, less is more. I don't want to do the whole entire area. And then we've still got this area. So because the light is maybe coming from this way, the highlights, actually, I could have actually, well, I mean, technically, that fur's a little bit different because, I mean, you might have certain areas that stick out more than others. So that's why I can kind of get away with this. But if it's coming from here, you want to kind of have some highlights. You can actually kind of touch right on the tips of the afro. So I'm gonna take this light color that I have. I'm gonna add some white, some here, and then I don't think this is actually, yeah, it's dry. So let's add more white. A lot of the painting and stuff like that is literally going to be testing and seeing with the paint mixture and stuff like that. So if it's going to be light enough, I think that's still not light enough. Another thing that I would recommend is if you have like a spray bottle, use that to kind of keep your paints a little wet on the palette so they don't dry out. Don't over soak it, like maybe a small mist of water every like 5 or 10 minutes if you feel like your paints might be getting a little dry. Will help keep those wet. So if I'm gonna do a highlight, I'm gonna do a highlight here, right here, and then maybe one right here, and then maybe another one here. And then I'm trying to think what else. Maybe here. It's gonna be kind of playing with it and kind of see what works for you. Another thing you can also do is use reference, get a picture, and kind of get an idea. Try to look for like where the shadows and the lights are. Not necessarily the color, because you can always mess around with the color, but where the shadows, the highlights, and the lights are gonna be. Now I'm gonna show you how to do like a paint over. Falcon, get away from that. Sorry. So say I didn't like this for whatever reason, I wanted to change it. Not a problem. Hi, sir. Hello. I will show you my dog, Falcon. Hi, big boy. Hey, Falcon. So, anyway. What, you camera shy? Get out of here. So say for whatever reason, I did not like this. I didn't like how it was coming out. This I was okay with, but for whatever reason, I didn't like this. That is not a problem. You can paint over it. What you're going to do is you're going to get your base color, or if you want to make a darker color, something like that, do that. In fact, I'll do it with black, actually, because I'll do it like have the black fading into the red, right? So I got straight up black. And at this point, it's dry. Like, you want to make sure that this is dry before you try to paint over it. Otherwise, you're going to get something like this where it looks like you're trying to mix it. And if that's not what you want, it could it can mess it up. So this is pretty much dry. It's not bone dry, but it's pretty much, it's not tacky either. So I can work with that. So once again, I'm gonna make like a circular motion to kind of help give that natural look to it as well, like a fro. Right? So I'm literally just painting over everything that I just painted. And if you have to do multiple layers, that's fine. But I'm going to paint over this. And depending also how thin the paint is that you're using to paint over, you might get something called a glaze, like right here. Try to see if I can get the light without making a glare. You can see some of that red sticking through, and it's because I've got more water than I have paint, so it's creating what they call a glaze, which allows the underneath color to slightly show through with the color on top, and that actually adds depth to your painting. So I paint over what I had. I'm gonna get this dark red, and I've still got black on my paintbrush, and that's okay. And then I'm going to rub that in here, and because that black is still wet, as I'm continuing to rub it, you're also picking up a little black as well and blending it in with that red you have, so it's gonna look like it flows more naturally versus just having this harsh line that you may have had. And then of course, because that red is still wet, I can go get some of this black here. I get a little bit of water here. I can get some of that black and then scrub that into the red to help make it blend a lot easier. Because as soon as I touch that red, I'm picking up some of that red and it's going into that black as well. So that's going to actually help uniform the painting as well. That's going to help it look like it genuinely blends a lot more. And don't be afraid to really, like, I'm going to do it here, like really push down like on your brush, like, because that's going to help mix that paint in. It's going to, you're going to have one of those, like, you're going to have to not be so precious with the brushes, because you're going to have that one brush that you're generally just going to kind of beat into the ground, because you're going to be like scrubbing pretty much to get maybe certain effects with your painting. But like, so the highlights here, Falcon, shush, 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 shush. But like the highlights here, right? If I scrub it, because I've added some water to it, that white is still kind of peeking through, or that tinted highlight color is still peeking through. So that's what I mean by like a glaze. Like, it's still there, you can still see it, but it's not as strong. So also glazing helps knock that color back a little bit to where it's not too bad. Falcon, shush your mouth, sir. So at this point, I'm just kind of playing with the mixture of color because I want to continue to kind of blend this area in. So I'm sorry about the part where you're talking about the back. So, but so I'm literally just pushing these colors around all over and kind of fading it into what I've already painted, so that way it's got a more cohesive look, because that looks like it flows a little bit more natural. Now, mind you, I'm not really taking my time here, so I mean, but it looks like it flows a little bit more natural. If I wanted to, I would definitely allow this to kind of do this. And then also because I'm scrubbing, it also gives that texture of like that, like just the natural waviness of like a fro. So that also might help you give you that texture that you're wanting to get in your painting without genuinely having to really struggle to get it. So literally just scrubbing it in like circular motions and kind of moving that paint around on the canvas. Like, and there's not much, so there's not much here. Like this is what you would call like dry brushing. So there's not much paint left on here because I've got it on the canvas and I'm just continuing to kind of brush in, picking up a little bit of paint now, but I'm just kind of brushing in what's on there, making sure that it's kind of all going on there, and that's creating that texture that I want. So it flows a little bit more natural. The highlights are a little bit back, a little bit knocked down a little bit because of that glaze that I just did for it, and there's that. So if I want to do a glaze, like a dark glaze over this whole entire thing, because at this point, if I wanted to kind of be like, okay, this looks okay, but it doesn't look too uniform, I'm going to show you how to glaze it. Now, technically you would do this after this is completely dry. So you would maybe want to get a blow dryer, completely dry this out. Glazing helps not only uniform a painting because it kind of puts like a really thin layer over it, but it also allows you, once that glaze is dry, it can help you add depth to a painting if you add stuff over the glaze. So what we're going to do for the glaze is, because we've already got enough dark going on here, especially like this nice little mid-tone that we've kind of collected right here, and this would be your brightest area, right? So what we're going to do is I'm going to do a mixture of both. I'm going to take a little bit of the light one. I'm going to take a little bit of the dark. Now, mind you, I say the color choices that I'm picking doesn't matter because you can do this with whatever colors you're using. It's just the lighter version and then that kind of like that base coat almost, right? I'm going to mix this up first because with the glaze, you are looking at 80 to 85% water and very little paint. So that's how much paint I have. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to, my dirty paint, I'm going to pick up a lot of water and lay it down here. So I'm going to drag a little bit of paint into it because I want this to be mainly water. Now, like I said, normally this would be bone dry. It is not. So there's going to be possibly a little bit of pulling in certain areas of the paint, or maybe some paint lifting up from where it's not completely dry. But so that what I'm going to do is, because this is, actually, let me get my bigger brush. I'm sorry, I literally have a selection of brushes. I'm going to go, this is my paintbrush selection here. But I'm going to get a bigger brush because this small brush is not going to work with what I'm trying to do because this canvas is still wet. So I'm going to take a bigger brush because you want to do the glazing light. You don't want to be heavy-handed with it. So, and I'm getting as much water as I possibly can. And I want a bigger brush just because this canvas isn't dry yet. So I'm working with the big piece. So a lot of water, very little paint. So what I'm going to do, lightly, I'm just going to go ahead and go over. Now, normally you would just go over the area that you're you're trying to glaze, but I'm just doing the whole canvas because I don't have anything in the background. But like I said, that paint is kind of lifting up because it wasn't fully dry. That's why you would want it to dry fully before you do it. But look, so, but with that glaze, it kind of uniforms. I'm not sure if you can kind of see the difference with the camera, but it kind of helps unify this area, and it kind of helps with the smaller blend areas because you've got that small glaze that's kind of going over it. So hopefully this helped. I know it's a long ass video, but I tried to include as much as I could with what I think you might be trying to do with the fro, as well as other hints or tips when you go to do your other painting. So let me know if this was helpful or if you want to see something else, and I can try to do a quick tutorial. All right, peace out.